Hello.
Hey, Glenn. How are you? How are you, Glenn?
I'm coming in.
Coming in.
I'm full of snow.
Where you
looking at myself in the mirror in my window.
What are you thinking looking at yourself in the mirror, Glenn?
I can't hear you yet.
What's going across your mind when you're looking at yourself in the mirror?
Santa Claus hasn't left town.
What happened? Oh, yeah.
Because I look like I belong at the North Pole.
You do. You look like Santa Claus, you know, without
All I'm missing is the red suit.
Yeah, and all that weight, extra weight.
Hang on, I gotta clean my glasses. I can't see through the snow. We had about a foot in that snow this week. But that doesn't stop the truck.
Is it a big truck you got? What kind of truck? Like a pickup truck?
Hang on, I'm going to switch phones because the other one talks louder.
All right.
Try me now.
Yeah. That's a pickup truck you got?
Hey?
That's a pickup truck you got?
Yeah, it's got four-wheel drive, so it can make it through the snow.
Yeah.
The problem is once you get around a foot or more, it builds up underneath, and the wheels really go off the ground, and it's kind of tilting on a stack of snow.
Yeah.
And when that happens, you got to get out and shovel on your hands and knees to get the snow out from underneath it.
Yeah. How's your driveway? Is it like one big long driveway?
Well, the driveway is about 200 feet.
Wow, that sucks, man.
And it goes around in a kind of a shape, something like a 6 or a letter G, lowercase letter G, something like that, around the hayloft. And between the hayloft and the barn, and comes back.
Do you use just a shovel? You don't have a snow blower?
I have a snow blower, but snow blowers, or they call them throwers now, they don't have the power of a vehicle. So it basically goes a little bit, and then the wheels kind of spin, and you got to push it past that spot. It's a lot of physical stuff.
Yeah, whenever we get snow here, I always have to shovel it.
Yeah, I shovel the entrance and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But if I drive through it with the truck and it hardens, it creates ruts, and the snowblower or snow thrower has a hard time moving ahead with the wheels getting stuck on one side, not on the other. But it's still better than having to shovel a couple of 100 feet back. But I can't do it like I used to 10 years ago when I came here. I used to do it in about a day and a half. Now I have to break it down into about an hour at a time, maybe an hour and a half, and then I'm bushed, which is the way I am right now. So what's new?
Oh,
you get my Jennifer's email?
Yeah, I spoke to her. She told me. She said you would, I guess, expound on that more. Like something happened. I'm not sure.
Well, what we got was a letter from the Minister of Public Safety. Mm-hmm. That's a new ministry. I had never heard of it before. Mm-hmm. And they now control CSIS, mm-hmm. which is our equivalent of the CIA. Mm-hmm. They control RCMP, which is like the FBI. And they control the Port Authority, mm-hmm. Which is the border guards. And it's an agency, which means there's some hanky-panky going on there. An agency in a federal government is usually because there's things going on that they don't want to declare as part of the government. And even though there might be a lot of hanky-panky, they don't have to make the same responses to government. But what occurred, according to them, is that Jenny showed up at the border with a car full. And she said that she was going to drop this off and then make her way back to the U.S. after visiting with me and apply for a visa from the U.S. For permanent resident status. They didn't believe her. They said, it's not true, you're trying to move in. Mm-hmm. How does a 55-year-old director of nursing function if she sneaks into the country? Can't get a job, you can't get social security number, you can't get anything. So, I mean, these are people that don't have a brain past the front door. And they're supposed to be managed by professional policemen who oversee the information and sign off on it, which they claim they did. Now, the information in the letter sent to us by the Minister of Public Safety does not match the information in the document excluding her from Canada. It is a totally different approach. It says that she had 15 days for a judicial review. There's none of that written in the document she got. The document she got looks like it was doctored. It looks like the paragraph that would allow for a review was pasted over and another paragraph introduced saying you just don't get in for a year. There's no mention of what minister. It just says the minister, and it was natural to believe that they were talking about the Minister of Citizenship and Immigration. But no, it wasn't Minister of Citizenship and Immigration. It's public safety, which I never heard of. And nobody told us when we immediately wrote to the Minister of Citizenship and Immigration and said, it says in the document that you can write a letter overriding the border guards. Please write the letter. This woman is exactly what you've been calling for, saying there's a shortage in Canada of certain occupations, and the most important one is caregiver, registered nurses, psychiatric, geriatric. All of that is going to cost the government a fortune if people don't start handling it in their home, and we need those people who can do that. That's what Jenny is a director of nursing for. 5-star rating in California, which is the highest level that can be had. Here's a bunch of idiots at the border claiming that because her car's loaded up with blankets and pillows and stuff like that, that she's moving in. In any event, faxes have now gone out to all of the cabinet ministers, all of the deputy ministers, all of the concerned agencies and media outlets. It's going out today to all the members of Parliament, which are like members of Congress, and tomorrow it will start flowing into the U.S. government. The Prime Minister was in Washington this week talking with Barack Obama, and the topic was, we got to open up the border.
Oh, whoa.
And make it more accessible for people to cross back and forth. And here you have the same Prime Minister who's forcing a registered nurse, director of nursing, to stay in a room in Ogdensburg, New York, unemployed, while they're crying for nurses both in the U.S. and in Canada. I mean, you can't even get nurses in some places in the U.S. Florida and California have a real shortage. New York, I mean, in New York, they're advertising for nurses all the time. Yet, because she's coming to Canada, they wouldn't give her a job, they say. So
they committed fraud, basically, you say.
Eh?
So they committed fraud.
They committed fraud, and there's a purpose that is not being mentioned anywhere. And the evidence that I've collected suggests that it is Valkyries who worry, I guess, about her ability to communicate to women and are trying to keep her out. And Jenny describes her arrival at the border not as a normal activity, but an ambush. That they had been advised she was on her way, and they were waiting for her, and they treated her not like a guest to the country, but like an accused convict, and interrogated her, yelled at her a foot away from her face, went through her stuff. Much of the computer stuff she had went missing. So there was an orchestrated reason for the guards to be acting in that manner.
The only person I can think of, right, Valkyrie, I don't want to upset anybody, but Barbara, who's, a Valkyrie, who knew about that.
Well, that's a very logical conclusion, but apart from seeing it at a distance of 5,000 miles, I don't have the evidence, so I can't get on that bandwagon yet. But she had a lot to do with Jenny coming to Canada and didn't want her to come during this period.
I remember that.
And from what we can see, she certainly did not want a relationship to develop between Jenny and I, let alone a marriage.
She was always like that? Or?
I don't know her. I mean, I know her when she comes to visit once every 2 or 3 years for 3 or 4 days, but you don't get to know people that way. She was here to learn, she said, and she donated to the Institute for the right to use up my time. Otherwise, I have no direct evidence of anything. I have suspicions, and I would like to talk to her about it, but she chose not to speak to us anymore since we got married.
I guess you're used to that, right? Where you just relationship with people kind of.
The story of my life.
Well,
it always happens when I would walk into a room, there would be 400 people there.
Mm-hmm.
And as I went through my talk and approached the subject of the role of religion in this matter, the attendance would drop by 25% in the room at the next break. When I reached the point of talking about Freemasonry, it would drop by another 25%. And then when I said that all political parties are the same, they all work for the same gang, another 25% would disappear. And towards the end of the meeting, if we had 50, 60 people in the room, that would have been a lot. So people go to meetings not to learn anything or to get somebody else's opinion, but only to confirm those things which they already believe.
So what's the point? I guess they want to solidify that.
Well, they hear I'm going to talk about corrupt politicians, so that attracts a whole bunch of people because they all believe politicians are corrupt, and they're probably right.
Yeah. And
I give some evidence of that, but they don't expect the other things that come along. That the world is not 4,000 BC. Or 6,000 years old. The world is a lot older than that, and many things happened a long, long time ago, and you cannot conceive of the separation of genders out of a hermaphrodite with the assistance of DNA without believing that someone doing that is a genetic engineer. Yeah. And to do genetic engineering, which is micro, you need a computer.
Yeah, you know what it is? Just people have that's like a hurdle for them. Like they can't imagine that they've been knocked back.
Yeah. They can't even imagine that somebody built the pyramids or the places in Jordan at Petra, even though they stand in front of them and look at them and say, how would they have been able to achieve this stuff if they were backward people?
Yeah.
So even the visual evidence doesn't convince them. And now they're walking around saying, oh, yeah, they've genetically engineered a pig, and they've genetically engineered a sheep, and called it dolly.
Oh, yeah.
And they somehow make a little division in their brain and say, But it's not possible to genetically engineer people when they're just another animal.
Well, that's maybe I guess they were correct, when they made the loonies and they were talking about people.
Yeah,
They're all loonies.
The people who design those symbols know what they're talking about. That the people they're talking about are idiots.
Yeah.
They call them loony because they see them as loons on the water, just crying all the time and do nothing about it. And they even go to the point of including the word loo, which is a toilet, in the word loony. So, hey, what are you going to do? Isn't it creation's decision or beyond the point of repair, that only a massive cleansing might give this place a chance to start over? But as long as this type of person is in charge and running the government and running business and running religion and running the military, forget it. And now they have to deal with the fact that it's no longer the people who are running that are in charge. It's the people who nobody suspects.
Yeah.
The clerks, the receptionists.
Yeah, I was looking at
secretaries.
I was researching that, like the Grey Nuns, and just looking at some symbols associated with them, and I noticed, like, what does that represent when they have that little tuft of hair? Because that's how they differ from every other nun. They have like this little patch of hair that they leave exposed on their head.
Hair and nails. Ask Jenny, she's a nurse. Mm-hmm. Hair and nails continue to grow after a person dies, lives on, and therefore is symbolic of reincarnation. That if you use the DNA, can reanimate the whole. And the crucifixion is based upon a guy who gives up his robe, is nailed to the cross. That's the symbolic use of the word nail, in the hands and in the feet. And if you get nails, as the Egyptians used to do with mummies, you can get the DNA necessary in the same way as you grow an oak tree from an acorn. You can grow a person from their DNA. It's called cloning. And it doesn't happen only with pigs.
But yeah, I see these Grey Nuns. They on what I could find about them, like they have institutions, Canada, United States, South America. I guess it's
called an order in the new world.
Yeah.
Most people don't grasp that concept. They think they said new world order and meant the world. What they meant is an order is being created in the new world. And we've begun to do it in Montreal. And then in Montreal, there begat a problem. You couldn't spread the product out, the genetically engineered children, to an area that spoke a different language. So they had to make a move, and they moved to Ottawa. From Ottawa, created their headquarters, St. Patrick's Home, Immaculata High School, all of the places where Reform girls went to, that kind of stuff. But when it came time to distribute and to prepare for the end of the world, they moved to pirate headquarters on the St. Lawrence. Ogdensburg original use was basically to put people at the narrowing in the St. Lawrence so that they could steal from the native people who are bringing furs in to Montreal for sale at the Hudson's Bay Company in Montreal. So this was their first depot coming from the west. They had a similar operation coming down from the Ottawa River towards Montreal. At the end of the island of Montreal is where the pirates were located. And guess who that was? It was a guy who had come from France whose name was de Youville. And when he died, his wife donated all of the money he had to the church and was in turn given the help of the Trappist monks and Sulpicians to create a new world order.
Now, what's the major difference between these gray nuns and all the other orders of nuns?
Well, what is gray?
In between.
Gray
Mulatto.
is when you want to make a combination of black and white. And since there were two groups of people in the world that the controllers of our planet, had determined must go, number one being the blacks, because they were the original people, and number two were the whites, because they were task-oriented, and that was to fly off the planet and get into the solar system and beyond. Their task was complete, and now it was time to get rid of them. Well, how do you get rid of two races? You merge them. And the word is mulatto, the land of Mu. 8-O mulatto.
Yeah, I think I was looking at that word the other day. You can divide it into mul, M-U-L, and atto, and I guess atto could be ato or something like that. But there's a whole bunch of links that I found with the word M-U-L, the letters M-U-L. I guess it's linked to mules, whatever. But that area where the gray nuns came from, Orion?
Gardien.
Yeah, that's
Gardien is Orion.
That's what I was gonna ask. What is in the code? I've seen that more than once. They're not the only ones that use it. But what do they mean? When they use Orion? Are they talking about
Orion? Is a play on the word Aryan.
Oh, okay.
Aryan is a play on the word alien.
So when they say alien, they're not talking about the Deans, because they're not aliens.
No, they're not aliens. They're Aryans. They come from the land of the Gypsies. The land of the Gypsies is India. And sent the Gypsies up to set up a plateau in North Africa to frontal lobotomize the continent. If you look at the map of North Africa. It's basically a head, and it's facing the Indian Ocean. What has happened is, you look at the front and the top, is it's pulled away. It's been lobotomized by the entry of the gypsies to a land they now called Egypt. And there they set up a pyramid, which at the beginning was three-sided. That was in the time when knights were originating as soldier priests. But then they divided knights into two categories. You were either a soldier or a priest. And you have a pyramid now that has four sides, one side for the priest, one side for the soldier, one side for the merchant, and one side for the rulers, the politicians. And they all go progressively narrow as they rise. And what's missing is the capstone on the top. And that's what they're expecting to build in the North Cap continent that will be used to explore the universe.
Yeah, and you said when they made it four-sided, how's that linked to, like, four dimensions? Or time?
It is linked to four dimensions. The Sphinx is linked to the fifth dimension, which basically means the pathway towards creation. And creation is the sixth dimension, and the symbolism of that is wisdom, and therefore the six is made like a serpent that rises.
Yeah, what do you know of, have you ever looked into, like, Einstein? He talks about, like, 11 dimensions of reality.
Einstein, from what I know, failed math in high school. Einstein was an employee of the government patent office. Genius and Einstein are the theatrical production of the media. His job, as it was with Francis Bacon and a group of scientists all over the world, was to do what they are told to do. Much like imams today are the priesthood of the politician in an Islamic country and are paid for by the government. Scientists are paid by government or its agencies. Agencies can be business. Agencies can be military. Agencies can be political, such as IRS.
Yeah, they're private.
Private, and the payoff is security of employment. And instead of being whipped, you get to whip other people. Instead of having to wash the blood off of your clothes, you can get other people to wash your clothes for you. But still, that wasn't good enough. They had to improve the slave so that they could cut down on their work. So instead of assembling them in a big long cabin and feeding them every day so they would go out and work, they now fool them into believing they're free, and they do their own shopping and cook their own meals. But at the end of the month, there are always days before payday, because you're shopping at the company store. Whether you call it Costco or Woolworths or Walmart, they're all company stores.
A lot of people don't realize, like, they don't see, like, these names, man, these corporate days, they don't see.
Every major corporation in the high-tech world is designed to assist the military fight a war. And in between wars, they have to sell products to consumers. Because what is it that slaves do in their off hours? Consume, be quiet,
and die.
and die. That's the task assigned to a human being. And you can either be the whipped or the whipper.
Winners and losers, they call it.
That is not what creation intended when creation made the planet. But that is what happened when Creator hijacked the system. And until and unless that disappears, there is no future in this universe. Creation is waiting for all of us to ask, please take back control away from this Creator God and bring it back where it belongs. Everything you hear in this world is about the Father. But yet, creation was created out of matter, and that's mother in Latin.
Well, I'm so tired of it. I'm so tired of, all this worship of God, Father. And I find myself repeatedly telling people what God is and what what that is and what creation is. And some people, they just don't want to. They just don't want to believe it.
Most people are conventional. In other words, they follow the convention. Convention decided what was true, and they follow the convention. I admit I am unconventional. I am a male, and I refuse to cut my hair short because I know that hair is more important than just something hanging on your head. They call themselves centric. Means they're close to the center. The center is the media and the tax man. And I want nothing to do with either. Therefore, I am eccentric. I was brought up centric. I learned what it was all about. I packed up my bags and left. Therefore, I accept being called an eccentric. Eccentric is someone who does not want to be a slave, does not offer the controllers the respect they expect, tells it to their face, and expects to die doing it. But it has been a much better life being an eccentric than it ever was being centric, which is just a code word for stupid.
Well, I see that personally in my life, you know. Ever since I guess started that journey, I thought life was more interesting for me. It was like, it's not as
and it can be even more interesting if creation got back control. So there's that little tiny possibility out there that during our lifetimes that might happen. And therefore, one can never give up hope. Buy a lottery ticket instead of going to church. At least there you get your money's worth. May not be a prize that you win, but you buy hope for $2. And you can give away a toonie.
Yeah. Well, I was watching a video. I'm sure you've seen the Rose Bowl parade this year.
Yeah.
I noticed a group of women, they were wearing like purple silk, like a cloth on themselves, like a sack. Actually, no, it was like on a stick, and they had these purple. Do you know what that meant when they did that?
You are.
You are?
The two excuse me, the two letters U and R. Or R and U are the keys to coding. A U, because it's part of IOU, can be converted into an O or an I. But a U basically means two people attached together. An I is a single person. When you attach two people together and you put an I underneath, supporting them, you have a Y.
Yeah. And
that's the future slave.
That's all Desdemona.
Yeah.
That's what I've been trying to work on. You know, I've been looking at them and just trying to imagine my own head. Like some of them, I see some things, but I'm trying to get a better understanding of these pictographic symbols. I mean, I look at other pictographs that aren't Desdemona, and they seem to tell a lot of symbols. But I guess maybe that's the stuff I have to learn over time.
Destroy the demon woman is their way of acting.
Yeah.
Because woman was a hermaphrodite and the mother of all things. Father, pater in Latin, pa, wanted control.
You think Jenny could teach me some of that stuff if I make it up there? Oh, when I make it up there?
Jenny is intuitive.
Mm-hmm.
I am reasoned. The two of us put together make a single person the way they used to be.
Mm.
She has a way of teaching which is symbolic. I have a way of teaching which is based upon learning. And therefore, the advantage of being here when she's here is that the person who wants to learn always needs to learn the part that they don't have.
Yeah.
If they are people who reason, they need to learn the intuitive way. If they are intuitive, they need to learn the learned way. And therefore, the education has the same purpose, but the approach is diametrically opposite, one from the other, and they meet in the middle.
Well, I just need I think I just need the age. Just to, like, because I'm looking at these things and I have an understanding, but I just need the I just have a feeling that these same things that I'm looking at maybe 2 years from now, a year from now, I'm going to be looking at them slightly differently.
Osmosis is the best way to learn. You get into the activity and you learn not from just books and pictures.
Mm-hmm.
You learn from living in that environment.
Exactly. That's been my problem.
If one lives in an environment of a flat in Brooklyn, one grows up to be like the people of Brooklyn. And that has a place in the world. But it's not usually the place where you find the greatest learning. You get a lot of learning about survival. But if you are living on a farm, the advantage is you get to see life and death every day, almost. And when you live in that environment, the senses are at their peak.
Yeah.
What will happen today? Will a mother goat give birth? Will the birth be normal? Will the chickens lay eggs? Will the rooster crow? Will the cats find water that isn't frozen? How come they seem to survive better than most other animals?
Well, that's what I noticed that, like, me, when I say I take a walk around on my block, I have a different experience as if I'm in the woods or something where I don't see anything artificial for miles. It's just everything is just something natural, and it seems to have a different effect on me. My senses, like, are heightened. Like my imagination, like everything is something I could use, I guess, as a tool. Or
think of being next to trees in the woods, and just imagine for a while that this tree has been standing in the same place, not moving around, but standing in the same place and making notes of what's happening around it. Is it cold? Is it hot? Is it wet? Is it dry? Is it windy? Did a storm happen that caused damage? And the tree is taking notes. And that's why they call it a tree. Did you ever think that because S and T are interchangeable, that might have a purpose? Trees, backwards, replacing the T with an S, is seers. They see what happens there, and they're making notes. And so they're telling you, in order to be alive, as above, so below. Look above the tree and see how it gathers in energy from the sun. But think of it as being equal underground, the roots gathering energy from the earth, the water. Trees know what happens in a place. And when you become able to remember back in time, you will be like a tree. And trees are like you. And we have a pineal gland. It makes melatonin. It's not something that humans need much of today. Its basic function in pharmacology is to make sleeping pills. But it's because it came from a time when things had to be dormant for long periods of time. And the two things that most needed to be dormant that were alive were fish and reptiles. And therefore it tells you where you come from. That if you're making the chemistry necessary to help a fish or a reptile sleep through long periods, that's where you began. That's the story of the Neanderthaler and the idiot savant. Long periods dormant.
Yeah, and I noticed they try to lie and say that they're the first ones, but it was the cat that was first. That was first before them. So. And
before the cat, there was the reptile that came out of the sea. An eel is not unlike a spine.
Yeah. When you look at the spine just by itself, a picture or something. It looks like some type of...
and the links between all reptiles. You know, there's a reason people talk about reptilians, but it's not what they talk about.
But
reptilians means us.
Yeah,
we
the reptilian
came from there.
Yeah.
But that was millions of years ago.
Yeah. Well, they use that symbol. It's not David Icke who talks about. If you look at like Star Trek, they usually have like reptilian races and stuff like that they use.
It's all symbolism and allegory.
Yeah.
Pisces is the fish. Look at Ogdensburg, as pointed out by Mr. Yu a few weeks ago, is shaped like a fish. Find the Pisces in the body.
There's a movie, I don't know if you've seen it. It came out in the 60s, a French movie that talks about this stuff. It's called Alphaville. Have you ever seen that? Do you have time to watch movies nowadays, or no, right?
No. That time is long gone. I got so much information that if I even look at what I already know, it takes up all my time.
Yeah.
Vesica Pisces.
Vesica Pisces.
Fish. Reptilian. Eels.
Yeah.
Pineal gland. Just the use of the word pine there says beginning. The one that provided protection is the pine tree. It's a coniferous tree providing cover for deciduous trees. Anytime the word pine is used, it means a beginning.
It's interesting that word, if you switch the letters around, in the word capone.
Yeah.
Instead of saying cap one, you can say ka and pone. Pone is like, the O and E is the beginning.
And it's al, cap
capone.
one. Al is the French feminine participle, la, instead of the masculine, which is le. In Kealey, there is L-E before the Y. Le Y. That means male. La is feminine. So at the end times, you will have a boy called Sue. It will be the cap slave, 2 in 1. And we're there now. Any event, 3 o'clock.
But one more thing, like with the new slave, do you think when the slave has gills and fins, that's the last model? Because the word fin, right? Isn't it like another way of saying finish in French?
Yeah.
So that's the last one they're saying?
Well, they come from Finland.
Yeah. And that's what they were working on in Finland, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
The headquarters of recombinant DNA, Finland. Finnish. You put the big G in, you got a gill. And who would put the big G on? It's done at a university by the St. Lawrence River. It's called McGill. They write it MC Gill, but a C and an A go together like all caca.
That whole area over there is like an end times bio an area.
They did MK Ultra experiments there too.
Yes, absolutely. CIA controlled. What is CIA? It's just missing the letter N. Kane. Builder. Ian is based on the word Cain, the builder. But the other guy is called Abel. The A-B. Le A-B, Abel. Out of is A-B. The one that came out of the system and was given a position of power. And now you honor Abel when you speak to an honorable judge.
Yeah.
Honor Abel.
Yeah, and then that whole judge thing, like, they have this whole thing of dishonor and honor and going
Your honor.
Yeah.
Our Hun.
Attila the Hun.
Attila the Hun, yes. Hungarian.
Oh, yeah. That's...
But they're not as important as Hurons. Ben-Hur.
Yeah, all these things I want to know. Like, I want to know, like, because they basically have a format of, like, hey, these races, this is their job, but then they subdivide these races into different nationalities.
Yeah.
And so that means their jobs are more refined or changed or something.
Akhenaten and Nefertiti were brought back to Egypt to become the fourth monarch in his succession during the time of the 18th dynasty. Hurry is a place in northern Syria.
Oh, okay. Now I see
the
what you
IRS
mean,
in Syria is SYR.
And what were you saying? You were saying something to me the other day about Egypt and how something about linked to Canada.
There is a tunnel.
Mm-hmm.
I've drawn it on the map in the basement. And it leads from Giza to the Azores. It's not an accident that the Azores belong to Portugal. In French, the word porte is a door. Port you gal. So it's the female's door is Portugal, and it's at the place called Azores, A to Z. And it starts at the Sphinx and goes to the Azores in a straight line. Draw it on your map. Problem is, maps are a little bit skewed depending on who made it. But if you get a Smithsonian world map and put it on your wall, it's always probably the best thing you can do. And then put a pin on the Sphinx or on Giza and a pin on the Azores and tie an elastic band between the two of them in a straight line. Then take a ruler, measure the distance between the two, and continue that line in a straight line from the Azores to that same distance. And you will find the place is Sault Ste. Marie, that has the locks that hold back the water of Lake Superior. The big loo at the Sault. And that straight line you will see goes through the Bay of Fundy, which is at the area surrounded by the state of Maine, the province of New Brunswick, and Nova Scotia. There's an island in the middle called Grand Manan. It goes by there and it works its way past here, right under the farm. Seem to recall, to get here, it also crosses Ogdensburg. But its journey is on the way to Sault Ste. Marie. And I suggest that underground in that tunnel, somewhere between 125 feet and 1,000 feet below ground, if it's above the Canadian Shield. More than 1,000 feet if it's below the Canadian Shield, because that's the roof of the underground. That tunnel can be used at Sault Ste. Marie to artificially induce a blind thrust, which is equivalent to an earthquake happening vertically rather than horizontally, and destroys those things that are on the surface. You saw the test they did a couple of years ago in Minneapolis, Minnesota. They raised the ground and caused the expressway to shift sideways about 30 feet. But if you do it at Sault Ste. Marie, you're going to break the locks and the water is going to come rushing out.
Yeah.
Eventually, it will destroy the peninsula, which is the wall that holds back most of the water in Lake Superior, and it'll pour down on Chicago and Detroit and Buffalo.
So speaking of those type of things, Mike told me yesterday that they something else happened in Australia again. I think it was
the floor of the ocean on the west side was rising.
Yeah.
And since Australia is a plate on its own, it was tipping Australia. So part of the problem that they were having was not solely from water falling from the sky. It was from the fact that the plate was tipped. Anyways, no place in the world of any consequence was ever built by accident in the location they now occupy.
Yeah, I'm still trying to fully understand, why. Remember how they had the earthquake in Haiti? Why that particular area? Were there important people there that they wanted to?
It was a place that they made central. It's not that things happen in Haiti. It's Haiti was built where things happen. And it had its purpose in those things happening. And it's not called hell on earth for nothing.
And now, what was Haiti designed? Why they even make that area for? 'Cause they obviously were doing engineering. Because they use the Indians.
Look at the word. H means connected. AI is artificial insemination. And TI is it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's artificial insemination without gender. It's an it.
Oh.
A hermaphrodite is an it.
So that just tells me that they were just working with DNA over there. Like they just...
And in order to do certain things, they have to attract tourists. And at one time, the mob was the one responsible. And the priests have been there since Christopher Columbus.
Yeah.
It had a link to the department of the government which we call mafia.
And they definitely have links to, like, Africa, like with DNA, to the past.
1492. It was one island, not two countries. 1492 is the beginning of the Phoenix, linked to Christopher Columbus. That period of time, 484 years, ended in 1976. The cleanup is always 16 years, so that brings it to a total of 500 years, 1992. Then you start a new Phoenix, 16 years, leads you to 2008. And we are now at the beginning of a 484-year period for the planet that began in 2008. A phoenix rising out of death, out of its funeral pyre. So hang on, because that's what we're going to be doing. Rising, and when something rises, something falls.
Yeah, when
something gets wet, something gets drier. We're about to get it. We are in the month of February.
Valentine's.
The key date in February, except for Jenny's birthday, which is the 23rd. The key thing in February is St. Valentine's Day. Number 5, the fifth dimension, the gateway. Gateway to what? Well, St. Valentine's is linked to love. Love is a word they use for lava. It means in French, laver, to wash, to cleanse. What did Al Capstone do with it? The St. Valentine's Day Massacre.
Yeah.
Then we go into March and the birth of a new society based on the March of the Penguins.
Those are the nuns, right?
The nuns, black and white.
Yeah.
They're marching 65 miles inland, which is basically what they did when they left Ottawa and went to Ogdensburg. And then you find the April Fools, who never believe anything unless it's on CNN or CBC.
Yeah. And that word actually has
the
loo
word
in it,
fool is the word loo, toilet. The guy who just resigned Friday as Commissioner of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police is called Elliot. Elliot is a play on the word toilet. somebody's getting ready to flush the toilet. Therefore, you can expect mayhem in the month of May. May is the month of Mary, the Virgin. Genetic engineering birth. Then comes June and July. August, September, October, November.
Well,
we forget.
Yeah. Like I think like March is like something else. I just have this feeling like March this year, something.
March of the Penguins.
Oh, maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's what the Grey Nuns who live off the Shield are probably going to be marching inland on the Shield.
Well, they are inland, and they are in the business of making foundlings, not finding them, but making them. And they are mulatto by name, gray. And get ready, the friends of the system are called Amis, Amish.
And there's another word, that word, penguin, right? Gwen is like Gwendolyn or something, and pen, you know.
There's a whole link. My mother's maiden name was Seguin, Guin. So,
and pen is mightier than the sword, right?
Yeah. A pen is a quill.
Yeah.
A Q is a symbolic egg that is being penetrated by a genetic engineer.
Yeah. Needle. Yeah.
Sometimes they'll draw that penetrating line as a curve that goes in and then back out, as human beings born on the planet went inside the planet, prepared their nasty work in cover, and then sent people out to the moon and beyond.
Yeah.
That's all designs of the letter Q. And of course, a Q is pronounced Q in French, and it means an asshole. Your anus is a Q in French. Q. C-U-L, cul-de-sac. Think of it as a canyon. And out of the asshole comes the most valuable thing every human being produces.
Shit.
Copies of themselves. In every turd they deposit, there is DNA. And that's why Abraham and Sarah came out of U-R.
Yeah, wasn't that the story?
U-R is in the middle of the word turd.
Abraham is the story when, I think it was Abraham and Sarai or Sarah, when they said, when she was like, oh yeah, I cannot have children, give me children. And they got the slave to make children for them.
They got an angel from God who's known as an archangel or archangel, came with the DNA on Noah's Ark. And Sarah got pregnant because it was an implant.
Yeah. Was it?
You had a baby.
Mm-hmm.
Your children are not your children. They come through you, but are not of you. they are but life's longing for itself. Therefore, just because the mother is used as an incubator, as Sarah was, doesn't mean she made the baby.
Yeah.
No
but even if the baby
knows
was
for certain.
But even if the baby was conceived naturally, you know, that could still be the case. You know, it's not really of you. You know, it's just.
If 4 generations ago, someone may have had an implant. And you're the product 4 generations old of this implant. And you contain the recessive gene network that was in the original implant.
Yeah. That's why when I look at you, Glenn, right, or the way you describe stuff and what you learned, and I'm like, damn, man, you really are like one of theirs.
I was one of theirs. I was an implant. I was a coprolite turd brought from France and used basically in Dorion in a place called Rigaud. Rigaud means come back again. Yes. In our world, that means we have had many deaths. We don't talk about being born many times. Cro-Magnon talk about being dead many times. And I can guarantee you that as true as cloning is possible for pigs, it is possible for humans. And it was going on in Egypt with mummies, dead bodies serving as the mothers of the DNA that could then be extracted and animated, reanimated into a clone.
Do you think this activity was concentrated strictly in Egypt, or was it a worldwide basis?
It was only demonstrated in Egypt.
Because when I look at
going on for thousands and thousands of years, below ground and above ground before the Ice Age.
Yeah. So it was going on in every region, right? Like every
region wasn't populated on the surface. You have to go and look where was the sun, and that's where people live, is where it's got sun. If it's always icy, people don't want to be there. But a lot of places people moved to became icy afterwards, and they adapted to that living style. When you talk about Atlantis going underwater, they forget to mention the water was frozen.
Yeah.
And it's called Antarctica today. But it'll melt soon, and you'll see the continent that was there. And why the penguins have to march inland is to make sure that when they're giving birth to their babies, that they're over the land, not on ice. That might just break away before it's time. Anyways, I got a farm to take care of, and some babies are looking for water. So I'll talk to you again next time.
All right, Glenn. Bye.
Have a good day, guys.
You
and
too.
Girls, if there are any. Bye for now.
All right.